Hello and welcome to the Creativity Conference's official podcast. My name is Aidan Rhode. I am the assistant manager here at the Creativity Conference, and I'm very excited to be hosting this podcast where I'll be discussing all aspects of creativity with some world-class creative minds who we are lucky enough to have joining us as speakers for the conference. Today I'm joined by Dorota Stańczyk, who is an author, speaker, creative director, designer, entrepreneur, and so much more. Dorota, thank you for joining me. How are you doing?
I'm very good. I'm very good. Good. Thank you for asking. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. You're going to be hopefully joining us in Iceland 2022 for
I am
the
joining you in Iceland. Yes.
for the in-person iteration of the Creativity Conference. It's hugely exciting. Of course, you're a very experienced speaker, but have you been to Iceland before? Have you spoken at events like the Creativity Conference?
Well, I haven't been to Iceland, first of all. And interestingly, it has been one of the places still pending on my bucket list. So when I actually learned it was going to be in Iceland, I was very, very excited. And yes, well, I've been speaking at many events about creativity, but I think the Creativity Conference, it will be a very unique event, first of all, because it's all around really creative mind and self-expression and an art industry. And I think, even for purely networking, is going to be a very magical place to be.
Yes, and for speakers and attendees, we'll have rooms which are dedicated sort of networking rooms, which
Absolutely.
everybody can book, speakers and attendees alike. It's going to be amazing. So tell me about some of your sort of current creative endeavors that you're working on in the morning, working on at the moment, and that you're particularly that excite you when you wake up in the morning to work on.
Right. Well, so I'm finalizing my book called The Recreate Yourself. I'm currently working on an audible version of the book, so I will spend the next week in the studio recording. The book is about recreating yourself, so going through all sort of fear of self-expression, fear of rejection, shame, guilt, anything that holds you to fully tap into your creative potential. Well, the book is taking you through all of the steps and different exercises to really help you to release that and connect to your biggest gifts and your biggest potential. So this is what I'm really the most excited about right now, because it's a combination of 8 years of my knowledge, and the book will be officially launched on March 3rd. In UK, so it's ready already on Amazon for pre-orders. However, the printed copy will be available in March, and I think this book is really going to help many people, like it helped myself, because these are all the tools I've created and discovered through my years of being and working in a personal growth industry and creative industry combined. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting sort of coaching journey that you can discover there. I'm also working on a happiness app. So an app that is basically helping you to train your happiness, train your mood, and train your state you're in every single day. I'm working on it with Mo Gaudet, who is an entrepreneur, best-selling author of the book Soft for Happy and Scary Smart. He was chief business officer for Google X. Then this is probably why most of people know him. And we are working on technology, AI technology, that will allow us to study behavior through the app and through your phone, and sort of search for behavioral patterns that influence how you feel. In the app, you will discover plenty of different exercises, experts video that will sort of guide you and show you the right way of doing things, the right way of thinking, and give you the tools you will be able to use on a daily basis to feel better and create and sort of practice and strengthen that muscle of being joyful and happy, to plug and release that serotonin that is needed to feel good. So this is a very exciting project. We are hopefully launching in March at the World Happiness Summit in Miami. So this is another very exciting project that particularly I'm really close. It's really close to my heart, particularly because it's again focusing on helping people. Anything we do in this world, we do in order to feel something, to feel good about ourselves, about our life, right? It doesn't really matter what we are doing, which career we are doing, where we are living. If we are feeling miserable, we will see and perceive our reality through the lenses of negativity. And if we can switch that and teach people to have that positive lenses and think positively and see the world positively, but mostly see ourselves positively, whenever we are, whatever challenge we face, whatever career path we are going to take, our life in general is going to be much more fulfilling and joyful. So this is exciting. I'm also working on a documentary series on hacking happiness. And here is to sort of show people that happiness doesn't necessarily only is created in our perception of the world, but also in the biology of our body. And if our body is not in harmony, we won't be simply able to release enough of serotonin and get to that flow state that will allow us to be present and get into that space of downloading the idea and information and plugging into that happy place within ourselves. There is so many people who is asking a question, am I unhappy because my body is not in balance, or am I unhappy because I am, having those negative thoughts and therefore I have a negative impact on my body, right? Is it the body that influenced the mind, or is it the mind that influenced the body? And I think it's really interconnected. So unless we first try to at least give ourselves a chance with our with the body, with the home we are living in, to be able to generate enough of positive emotion, we are not really giving ourselves the full chance to experience everything this life is offering us. So these are sort of really big projects, and of course I'm always trying to and working on creating a lot of different experiences and events and exhibition that will combine technology, art, and personal growth, so people can go through different experiences and feel the certain shift of consciousness and certain shift of how they perceive themselves, how they perceive the world. I think consciousness for me, it's my biggest fascination, and people's emotions, people's perception, people's creativity, people's self-expression. So this is what keeps me awake at night.
Yeah, you've clearly had a lot of experience with researching and experiencing the power of the mind for healing and personal growth. From your experience, and in a nutshell, how significant can the brain and the mind be in influencing our physical well-being and our creative state? And could this potentially be hacked in a way through certain motions and techniques to influence and improve our creativity?
Absolutely. And why, first of all, and how? The most important question. There is many monks and Buddhists who believe that we can't be sick if we are in the present moment. It's a philosophy behind many different traditions. And so what does it mean? First of all, and where lies the creativity, right? Creativity is in the present moment, right? It's the right side of our brain, which is responsible in putting us in that present moment specifically, right? And so what happens then which is perfectly actually described by Stephen Kotler and Jamie Will in their book Stealing Fire. We get to the flow state. And what happens when we are flow state, we first of all produce some combination of 5 most addictive neurochemicals our brain can produce. Secondly, we drop into either alpha or theta brainwaves, which is very calming, very meditative state when we get downloads of ideas and information. And thirdly, we experience what's called timelessness, selflessness, effortlessness, and richness, which means we forget about the time. We forget about the future and the past. We forget about ourselves. We go beyond ourselves to experience something that is happening in the present moment. We get those information, those insights, those nuggets of wisdom in those moments. And we experience effortless because we are in such a flow that it becomes effortless. That's the state that is not only absolutely significant and most important for creating anything, but also for creating our entire well-being, because meditation is nowhere else in the present moment. It's training your mind to be in the present moment, right? There are different techniques. Many people get to the flow state differently. Some will get there through meditative state. Other people will get there through communal experiences, such as being in a group of people in a concert, for example. Some other people through yoga, some other people through for example, art galleries and actually watching and observing art of different people. These are very individual and actually measurable. FlowGeno Project is offering a test which you can take online on flowgenoproject.com and check which profile you are and which profile actually, what can you do to get to that flow state easier. But so what is important to see that well-being is combined directly with creativity, because it forces us to be in that right side of our brain, which is the creative side, which is the present moment side. And only being in that side we can create, and only being in that side we can actually be healthy. And only being in that side we can be as well happy. Why? Because I wouldn't say how much percentage, but major part of our actually negative emotion comes from, are generated by negative thoughts. When we are in the present moment, we do not think, and therefore we not generate negative thoughts that will then influence and create negative mood in our body. So it all links. And for me, people who practice simply being in the present moment, so monks, people who very often actually extreme sports, fans, etc., people who are stretching to really be in that present moment and nowhere else. These are people who are very often the most healthy, because they don't allow those negative patterns of thinking to pollute their body, basically. So I hope this was not too complicated, but it's a fascinating topic, to answer your question.
Yes, it really is. And in terms of negativity, feelings, and people's moods being affected, the last 2 years over lockdowns and the pandemic have really impacted a lot of people negatively and some people positively. How did working through the pandemic and the lockdowns affect your personal workflows and creativity? Did you find that you were more sort of creatively stifled in some ways, but also maybe enabled in other ways that you weren't expecting?
For me personally, it didn't create any difference. It created more space to be able to perhaps do things I wouldn't normally have time to do. And I'm someone who is traveling constantly, so I find difficult to find that quiet place, and I do have to be quiet in the quiet place, and most of the time alone, in order to create. I love creating alone. I love just being by myself, to enter the creative process, to enter my meditative process. So the lockdown really allowed me to create a different routine to the one that I was used to. That resulted in actually starting and exploring much more of different techniques of creation. I came back to painting, which I wasn't doing for over 10 years. I started to explore many different mediums of creation that I sort of, I think, yes, I didn't touch for a long time. And for me, it was a very fruitful period. And because I kept my practice of daily walks, daily connection to nature, daily meditation, it wasn't overwhelming for me, because the base was always there, and I looked at it as an opportunity rather than looking at it as a limitation. But I do realize that for many people it was quite heavy, and the confrontation with yourself, being with yourself, with your own feelings, if you are not used to that, it can be extremely overwhelming, because it forces you to look what is going on deep inside you, and how do you feel mostly about yourself and your life in general. And can you accept the present moment? Can you accept that you are not going to know what's going to happen tomorrow? How comfortable are you feeling with unpredictability, with some sort of insecurity that situation created for all of us? So I believe that if we have very healthy practices that we maintain wherever we are, whatever is happening in our life, we will be always fine, because your sense of security, it all only ever is within yourself. And if you can find that connection, you will be strong and resistant in every situation in your life.
Yeah, you're right. It was a really introspective period, and remains to be for a lot of people. And it also, we were forced to be in our own houses and our own spaces for extended periods of time. I was talking in a previous episode with Mark Simon, who has built this incredible sort of creative studio in his house, which is sort of the ultimate creative environment to stimulate his own creativity. How important is your environment to creativity, in your opinion? And have you created a sort of creatively stimulating and inspiring environment in your own home?
It's massively important. Your environment is one of the things that influence your creativity hugely. First of all, talking very general, your environment meaning who you spend your time with, places you go, places you see. Again, why? Because of, first of all, novelty that has a massive impact on forcing you to be in the present moment. When we see things that we haven't seen before, our mind stops and start to actually observe, right? How many times you go or you walk to your work, or you take a taxi or drive, it's the same route, you switch off, you don't even notice what is going on around you. And you, again, spend your time inside your mind, and you don't even remember that moment, because that moment wasn't, you were not living that moment. You were completely absent. So spending and surrounding yourself and sort of creating the experiences that will be a new experiences, it really forces you to on every day to sort of push you out of your mind, and again be present. That's why people go to art galleries. It's not necessarily just purely to visit and see what amazing artwork. It's because it sort of gives in information to your brain to be present, and everything that is seen that is new is then translated as a substance to create with afterwards. Because what creativity is, it's a blend of everything that we have ever seen, we have ever read, we have ever heard, people we have loved. It blends all of that to create something new. So every new things you do and you experience is a new substance to create with. So it's extremely important to, even if it's taking a walk, choose another route, and you will see how different that will feel, because your brain will behave differently. So that's a little tip. But talking about people in your environment, it's super important to surround yourself with people who really inspire you, who are perhaps doing things you would like to do, who are better than you, who you can learn from. This will again stimulate you and gives you this extra motivation that is so needed to someone sometimes just sit down and start to create. But talking about your home, which you mentioned before in studio, I think it's super important that you create a space within the house which is purely for creation, which you associate with creation. Because if you go to a space where you only create every time you will go there, your brain will activate and will enter the creative process slightly faster and faster and faster. It's the same. It's the same, for example, if we try to program ourselves with writing, creative writing, and we start every day at the same time. After a week, our brain, even 5 minutes before the time, will already enter creative process, because it will get used to the fact that you're starting and you're always writing at the same time. So having such a space that will, that you can build with your favorite artwork, with artists, with images that will click and put you into that creative zone, it's super useful. It's super useful. I, for example, keep my desktop screen with plenty of images. It's my mood board. So every time I see my computer, it lights up in me that creative sort of inspiration. I'm like, oh yes, this is why I'm doing this. This is what I love. This is what I find beauty. And more you can create this kind of environment, or even wall, even a small space next to the office, quicker it will be for you to plug into that creative energy. So super important. I also find very important to be in a clean space. I can't create when it's messy. And by the way, decluttering is very fundamental for happiness, because when we declutter, our mind sort of it's very symbolic, but actually psychologically proven. Our mind declutter itself while we declutter our environment. So you gain that extra space in your head to create. So sometimes organizing your space before creating, it's a very good tip to actually enter that creative process and give to yourself more space for creation.
Wow, that's very interesting. And you've worked on a lot of projects, so there's got to be a lot of different thoughts always going on in your head about trying to keep track of all these different things.
Yeah.
Are there any projects in particular that you have a bit of a soft spot for, and you're particularly proud of, but that have potentially gone under the wayside and are a bit underappreciated, and you wish more people were aware of?
Wow. What an interesting question. I think that I am a great creator, and I'm definitely not a great marketer. And this is something that I'm absolutely okay with, because I really do prefer to create and promote myself. But I think I spend a lot of time on actually creating conscious creativity online course, which I put a lot of knowledge to, and to give people all of those tips actually. And the marketing part of it wasn't something that I found very easy. And so I sort of like created it, and just it has his own life right now, but I'm not putting any energy for this to sort of spread itself out. And if there is any project, like you said, that I'm thinking, oh, this was actually a lot of effort, and maybe it should have been received by more people to help more people, yes, that would be a project I would be thinking about.
Very, very interesting. Well, we're closing in on the end of our time. So I have one more question for you that I've asked everybody at the end of each podcast episode so far. And it's an easy question for me to ask, potentially a bit tricky to answer because it's so open-ended. But as a creative, what does creativity mean to you?
As I already mentioned in our conversation, for me, it is really the blend of everything that we know, for everything that we've ever seen, everything we've ever heard, books we have read, places we visited, people we have loved, all of that information that blends together in order for us to create something new. So it's a creative process is using what is known to create something that is unknown and new. And that's what is creativity to me.
Very eloquently put. Well, thank you so much for joining me. This has been this 25 minutes has flown by, and I'm very excited to see you in Iceland for the Creativity Conference 2022.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me.